it was still, I want to say the alternative to that conventional sick system was still considered woo back
Yeah.
then, integrative, alternative was the word that they
Yes.
alternative medicine. And it's not alternative medicine. It's educated medicine. It's actually looking for the root cause. So that's where functional medicine came about years later. And basically, I had entered that woo world because I was like, screw this. I'm not getting better in the conventional system. And I kept hearing the name over and over and over again, as if like God was speaking to me, basically saying, go see this person. So I kept hearing the name over and over again, Dr. Len Brantowitz. He was in
Okay.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And little did I know he would become my mentor and literally the man that saved my life.
This is True Voice Unfiltered, the podcast where raw truth meets real transformation. I'm your host, Daria Ann, ghostwriter, content strategist, and holistic health warrior. No, I'm not a doctor, nurse, nutritionist, or any kind of medical professional, and this show does not dispense medical advice. I'm just an informed patient sharing what I've learned on my own healing journey. I also interview accomplished authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, and functional medicine practitioners who are transforming lives. If you're ready to break free from the sick care system, reclaim your health, and transform your life, you're in the right place. Let's get unfiltered.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 50 of True Voice Unfiltered. I'm so excited. I'm almost through an entire season. I started this podcast almost a year ago, and actually it's coming full circle because the first podcast episode I did had to do with the FDA's crackdown on natural desiccated thyroid, which is one of the topics I discuss with my fabulous guest today, Dr. Amie Hornaman, who is also my thyroid practitioner. So Dr. Amie joined me for this episode to discuss her new book, The Thyroid Fix, which I highly, highly recommend. It's available on Amazon in Kindle, hardback, and audio. And Amie actually narrated the audio herself. And it's a fabulous book for anyone who is still struggling with thyroid symptoms. It may not be getting anywhere with their conventional doctor and really wants to understand the full picture, which also includes Amie's personal story. And I have to say, as I told Amie in our time together, I actually got choked up reading the part where in the introduction where she said, before I was the thyroid fixer, I was the fat kid in school. And boy, could I relate to that. And my eyes actually, I got a little choked up over that. I actually started crying. My eyes teared up. And it just made her much more relatable. And that is like probably the thing I love the most about Amie, aside from her intelligence and her extensive knowledge of the thyroid and other hormones, is just her realness, her honesty, her willingness to just put herself out there and share her story, her personal story. And anyone who follows her on Instagram, Facebook, and listens to her podcast or watches her podcast on YouTube knows that Amie is just very relatable, funny, caring, and just really committed to helping thyroid patients achieve optimization, which is entirely possible. So we discussed, labs that you should be looking for, even a first step that you could take right now, even before you reach out to Amie and her team, which I highly recommend. I have all the information for them in the show description. You can schedule a free discovery call to get more information. You'll work with a wonderful nurse practitioner, a health coach, and Dr. Amie. I am currently in her progression program because I reached optimization thanks to Dr. Amie and her team. And I wanted to continue, obviously, staying on that track. As we get older, we need to stay on top of things. So I feel great and I want to keep feeling great. And it's also great for accountability too, because we're all human. And that's another thing I love about Amie. She doesn't expect perfection. I mean, we all, whether we flex out on the weekends and maybe have hopefully a gluten-free piece of cake or some other thing you wouldn't normally eat and then get back into it during the week. I mean, she understands that this is real life. And so we're not after perfection. We just want progress and optimization, which is entirely possible, but is also very unique to the individual. And that is probably one of the things I love most about functional medicine is that it treats everyone as an individual. It recognizes bio-individuality and that it's going to be different combinations of things that are going to work for different people. So for example, I take low dose naltrexone, never bothered me. I titrated right up several years ago now. It's going to be 6 years that I've been on that. And it actually balances the immune system. However, some people can't take it. They're very sensitive to it. And so they might just take black cumin seed oil, which I also take. I take black cumin seed oil in addition to low dose naltrexone to keep the immune system strong. And that's just one example of tweaking things. Another example would be dairy. One thing I love about Amie too is that she's not a hard liner. Like, if you can tolerate high quality dairy, great. On the other hand, if you can't, then you should avoid it. But she's not this dogmatic, it's my way or the highway, or it has to be this way. It's all about experimenting and seeing what you as an individual can tolerate and what's going to support your body best. And of course, to that end, we also talked about the importance of strength training. Give up being a cardio queen like I did in favor of strength training at the gym. I go every other day. And Amie is right. She talks about how empowering it is, and it really is. And especially as you start making progress, adding more weight and, adding more reps and getting stronger and see the changes in your body composition, it's really inspiring, and it's motivating, and it keeps you going. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Dr. Amie. Reach out to her at dramihornaman.com. Again, all the information will be in the show description. But if you're struggling and not getting answers, it's time to do something different. Okay, because it's the definition of insanity. And I know I participated in that for several years before I finally found functional medicine and Dr. Amie, and now I'm doing great. So, there are solutions to Hashimoto's and low thyroid function if you're willing to be a participant in your health, because this type of medicine definitely requires patient participation. But when you work with the right practitioner, it's fun and enjoyable. And as you start to feel better, you'll want to keep feeling better, and you'll want to maintain your health, the optimization and getting your life back. So you'll have more energy, everything will function well again, from your digestion. Your skin will look great. Your hair will grow back. All of these wonderful things are waiting in optimization land, as Amie calls it. And I'm just really excited. So without further ado, I'm actually going to play this interview with Dr. Amie Hornaman, the Thyroid Fixer, author of The Thyroid Fix. Dr. Amie Hornaman, welcome to True Voice Unfiltered. I am so excited for this interview today.
I am too, girl, because I've known you for a while and your story. So this is just this is gonna be perfect for your audience.
Yes. Well, they know I talk about you all the time because you were really, I always say this, that you were the practitioner that got me across the finish line. I had gotten so far and I had found functional medicine. And we're going to talk about that too, because not all functional medicine practitioners are created equal. I definitely want to talk about that because I do want this to be educational for my audience, because Amie, oh my God, there's so many people out there in my daily life, in my networking groups. Like, there's just, especially women, that I just want to tell them, like, what are you doing? Like, go get help, go find the right person. Talk to me about this. I'll just say recently I was at a meeting where there were two women, they were just fanning themselves and, and one of them looks at me and goes, wait till you hit perimenopause. And I'm like, perimenopause, like way beyond that. I'm feeling great. And I'm like, and I just felt so bad because there's so many people that just think they have to suffer because we're stuck with this conventional medicine system.
I see it all the time. I was talking to a woman last week, just randomly. I had just met her, and you start talking about what you do. So people tend to talk about their health when they find out what your specialty is. And the amazing thing was, she literally didn't even know what her thyroid did. She didn't know about the female sex hormones coursing through her body. And she was about to go get a hysterectomy for heavy periods at the age of 39. I said, do you realize that's going to put you into menopause? It's going to put you into surgical menopause. She's like, what? What are you trying? Nobody told me that. I'm like, no, they're just happy to rip out your uterus and not even tell you the effects afterwards. So to your point, women just don't know about their own bodies. And that's what we're here to teach them, so that they can be aware.
Yes, absolutely. And so I just want to let everybody know that Dr. Amie's book, The Thyroid Fix, The No-Nonsense Guide to Fix Fatigue, Fogginess, and Fat That Won't Budge. I love that title. The Thyroid Fix is #1 in multiple categories. And I mean, well, just knowing you, Amie, I mean, I knew it was going to be a huge hit before I even read it. But then reading it, oh my gosh, it's just incredible. And I love how you put a little bit of your story but also focus it on what people really need to know. But before we went online, we were talking because one of the things that really hit me right away in the introduction, to the point where I got choked up, was, you were also the fat kid in school. You say, before I was a thyroid fixer, I was this overweight child in school dealing with bullying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can I relate to that? And then you go on and talk about how, I think at 16, you discovered bodybuilding and training and things like that. And then of course you went on to do some actual competition. So can you walk us through that? And I'm also curious about the food at that time. Were you doing the low fat thing still that we were all indoctrinated with as a bodybuilder? Like, how did that work?
Yeah. So yes, starting way back when I was a fat kid because my entire family, like we were talking about, and your family too, had diabetes in the family. That ran rampant. And, it was just it was almost status quo to have sugar all the time. You eat cereal for breakfast. You have a Schwabel's white bread sandwich for lunch. I remember my grandma would always give me Lorna Doone cookies and ice cream
Or the
after
shortbread.
dinner.
Oh, they were so
Yeah,
good.
little
Those
shred
cookies.
right? So it was like that was just staple, and, granted, we didn't know what we know now about nutrition back then, but it definitely hit my body hard in that I was always struggling with weight, always struggling with weight. So, yes, when I hit really, I mean, at the age of, like, 14, 15, I was doing aerobics in my living room, and then when I could finally join a gym, I joined a gym and started getting into training and cardio and reshaping my body. But when I started getting into competing, that wasn't until my 20s, and I would say, yes, we were still in the low-fat era. That was still the time where if you cooked a chicken breast, you had to trim off all traces of fat. There was no red meat in a competition diet. It was all chicken and fish and broccoli and asparagus, and that was pretty much it. Although we were more carb heavy. That was, you would have oatmeal or you would have rice or a sweet potato with your meals. But at that time, my body responded to that because it was so different from what I was used to. My body would respond, I would lose the weight, I would step on stage, I would compete. And then what I share in the book is that one time where the most perfect diet, the most perfect exercise regimen didn't even matter. And the weight just kept coming on and coming on and coming on. And it was an underlying thyroid condition that nobody could figure out until, a year later and 6 doctors later.
Yeah, so frustrating. And it made me so sad when you talked about how your own coach didn't even believe you and you were embarrassed to go to the gym. I was like, oh my God, I just could relate, even though I wasn't a bodybuilder, but I could just relate to that feeling. And people thinking, oh, you must be just eating donuts all day long,
Yep.
like just stuff in your face. And even now, it's kind of funny. And I think, and I'm not throwing I love my mom. She's wonderful. I don't want to throw her under the bus, but she'll see a heavy person and right away be like, I don't understand how you get that heavy. You must be eating all day long. And I'll just try to explain that I've learned from people like you that there's a lot of factors that play into this. It's not just this calories in, calories out that we were raised with. And again, all the low fat, the Snack Wells cookies and all of that stuff. We remember that. And my sister and I were really into like Elaine Powers. It's funny, my dad always had a gym in the basement and he always encouraged me to lift weights, and I never wanted to do it at that time because I thought that was just for guys and I didn't want to do it.
Right,
I loved aerobics, right?
right.
Until I got into a situation like you where I just couldn't lose the weight. So take us from there though, Amie. So you're gaining this weight inexplicably, and because I can relate to this too. So you're still in the conventional system, right? And you're just going from doctor to doctor who are all probably on your insurance plan.
Yep.
And walk us through that and what finally changed for you.
Yeah, and I know this is a big part of what you talk about too, and what you talked about in your book is, of course, we all start in the conventional system. I was in my 20s. I didn't even know any better. And I went to doctor after doctor after doctor. Some of them were endocrinologists, OBGYN, PCP. I remember one guy had metabolic disease associates. He had the word metabolism in the sign on his office, in the name of his practice. And yet he still gaslit me. I'll never forget. He came into the room and he's like, at the time I had put on about 25 pounds. I'm pretty sure the scale went up to about 40 pounds extra weight that I had put on unexplainably while eating perfectly. So he comes in the room. He's like, well, 25 pounds isn't that bad. And he points to some BMI chart. He's like, you're right here. You're like the average American. And I was like, well, I don't want to be average. And I literally handed him my diet. I'm like, look at what I am eating. And I joke, I'm pretty sure he had a Christmas party going on that he wanted to get back to, an office Christmas party. So he just dismissed me. He blew me off. And that appointment is when I went into my car and I literally put my head on the steering wheel and cried. And I started praying to God for any diagnosis at the time because I just wanted an explanation as to what was happening. Because you start to feel crazy. You start to gaslight yourself and go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, maybe it's me. Maybe I do need to eat less and exercise more. Maybe if I'm stricter, or maybe it is all in my head. Maybe just need to accept this. So it's wild what happens when a woman is tossed into the conventional system that then tosses her around, and it really starts to screw with your head.
Yeah. I mean, I remember at 19, I'd had regular periods. I started when I was like 12, and all of a sudden everything went haywire. My mom finally gets me to a doctor that I didn't want to go to. It had to be a female, and she didn't have an answer for me. I thought, like you talk about in the book, I thought I was going to go there. She was going to give me an explanation. We were going to figure out what was wrong with my body, why I wasn't getting regular period. And instead, she's like, here's this prescription for, I think it was Provera, which was like a synthetic. And I want to talk about synthetic versus bioidentical too
Okay.
later, but form of progesterone.
Yeah.
And I did not like the word synthetic. And I looked at her and she said, "Well," I said, "Well, why are we doing this?" "Well, it's just what we do. This is what I was told." And it made no sense to me. And it's going to create a false scenario in your body, like trick your body into thinking it's having a period. And I'm like, to me, that just kind of encapsulates how conventional medicine treats women. I hope it's changing. I don't know. We could talk about that. But thank God there are practitioners like you that we can turn to.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, back then, my gosh, we didn't even have the term functional medicine back then. It was still, I want to say the alternative to that conventional sick system was still considered woo back
Yeah.
then, integrative, alternative was the word that they
Yes.
alternative medicine. And it's no, it's not alternative medicine. It's educated medicine. It's actually looking for the root cause. So that's where functional medicine came about years later. And basically, I had entered that woo world because I was like, screw this. I'm not getting better in the conventional system. And I kept hearing the name over and over and over again as if like God was speaking to me, basically saying, go see this person. So I kept hearing the name over and over again, Dr. Len Brantowitz. He was in
Okay.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And little did I know he would become my mentor and literally the man that saved my life. So eventually I went. And listen, at the time, I was making like $200 a week, and there's no way that I could afford, a $500 visit or $1,000 visit.
Yeah.
But I figured it out because I wasn't going to live my life that way. And I scrimped and I scraped and I went to see him, and he sat with me for 90 minutes. Like he actually went through all of my lab work, labs that he ordered that was like a book more than any other doctor had ever ordered, and he explained to me what was going on. And he asked me the four most important words that any practitioner can ask you: how do you feel? And no other doctor had asked me that. I was volunteering how I felt, but they didn't care. They treated me like an algorithm, like a number, like a lab result. And he didn't. He paired the labs up and what we saw in the full set of labs with how I felt, and then explained to me what my body was doing and why I felt so horrible and why the weight wouldn't come off. And then he designed a plan. We obviously changed my thyroid medication. We addressed low hormones. We talked about nutrition and supplementation, and that was it. That's what I needed. And he made it seem
Yeah.
so simple, just so simple. And that's what I tell people today. I'm like, you know what? You're not that complex. It's actually right there in black and white. It's
Yep.
your conventional doctor doesn't have the right set of glasses on to actually see what's going on that piece of paper. And they don't have the time to spend with you because insurance does dictate that they have 5 to 7 minutes with you, and that is it. So they don't have time to ask you how you feel. You are just a lab value. And if you don't fall into that within normal limit standard lab value range, you're getting told you're normal and you're getting kicked out.
Yep. And in fact, you just did a recent podcast on that, Amie. I encourage everybody. I'm gonna put all your information in the show description, but it was so good. And you talked about just conventional medicine, and I like the way you framed it. It's like they're stuck in the system where even if the doctor wanted to spend an hour with you, they can't. I mean, we're run by insurance and pharma. And if you don't fit into a nice little billing code, into a nice neat little box, forget it. So, but I want to go back to, so before you found Dr. Len, right? So you had gotten a Hashimoto's diagnosis from the previous doctors. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I want people to understand what Hashimoto's is
Yep.
and why T4 only does not work, and I actually explain what T4 is too. So you had
Ugh,
gone to this doctor. So go ahead. Yeah. And you're thinking, "Hey, I got a diagnosis." And then she gives you a pill and you think, "Great, my problem is solved."
that's it. That's it. So doctor number 7. So I got six misdiagnoses. And then doctor number 7 actually did diagnose me with hypothyroidism. And then she explained, the autoimmune component of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's. And so that's where your immune system just gets confused and attacks your thyroid gland. And she's like, "Not to worry, here's a pill." Now, again, back then, I didn't know anything. I knew nothing about the thyroid. This was all new to me. I wasn't in the world of functional medicine. I was just a patient, just like everyone listening. Like, I was just a girl that was gaining weight. I wanted an answer. So when she gave me that diagnosis and I finally had a name for what was going on with me, and then I had a pill that I thought was going to fix me, I was, of course, excited. So I left her office. I'm like, yes, my prayers are answered. This is amazing. And I took that pill every single day for about 5 months, and it did absolutely nothing. So then I started Doctor Googling. I'm like, all right, what's happening here? I really thought that this was going to make a difference. So I start Doctor Googling and I find out, okay, what I'm taking is levothyroxine, Synthroid, it's T4. T4 is the inactive thyroid hormone. We don't have a single receptor site anywhere in our body for the inactive thyroid hormone T4. And then I started reading about the active thyroid hormone T3 and the active thyroid hormone T2. And I'm looking at this going, oh my gosh, there's these other thyroid hormones that actually do work in the body, that do give you a metabolism and help your energy and help with all of these symptoms that I was struggling with. So I went back to her and I said, here's this other thyroid hormone. It turns out it is in pill form that we can add to the T3 and put it together. And it's kind of like skipping the middleman. Like, why are you giving me this inactive thyroid hormone when there's the active over here? And she goes, well, that's not standard of care. So I
Mm.
don't do that. And it's
Ugh,
basically
yeah,
her saying, the insurance companies are dictating to me what I'm allowed to prescribe, and I have to stay within these boundaries. And if I go outside the boundaries, I'm going to get a slap on the wrist and maybe get dropped by an insurance company. So I can't actually treat you the right way because I am a slave to big pharma and a slave to big insurance. So I said to her,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, thank you for your honesty. I'm going to find someone who does. And that's what led me out of conventional medicine and into functional.
And one thing I love about functional medicine when you're working with a good practitioner is that it's so empowering. At least that's how I felt. And it sounds like you felt that way too, because yes, you do have to participate. So this is very different from outsourcing your health and expecting, like, I'm going to get this prescription and everything's going to be fine. Like, even with the T3, which is the active form of thyroid, that I want you to talk about, you still had to make all these other changes. And I think that's what I want to stress today too. It's not, this type of medicine requires the patient to actually actively participate in their health if they want to
Right.
get better. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You do have to be an active participant. And that's the thing. Functional medicine will show you what the root cause is. And I get this question all the time. Well, what's the root cause of my thyroid condition? I go, the thyroid is the root cause. The thyroid is the root cause of your hair loss and your weight gain and your fatigue and your brain fog and your constipation. You really don't have to look any further. You just have to fix your thyroid. And now you have addressed the root cause. But you also have to fix it the right way by giving your body exactly what it needs in the combination that it needs and the dose of what it needs. And that's really where functional medicine gets it right, in that we don't believe in a one size fits all. Now, I will say that and also circle back to your earlier comment that not all functional medicine is created equal. And I think that is very, very important to state these days, especially like maybe 5 years ago. Functional medicine practitioners were truly functional medicine practitioners. But nowadays, it's caught on to be a marketing buzzword. So now you have conventional doctors using the term functional to get out of the insurance based dictation system and charge you, but they're still practicing conventionally. And then you have functional doctors, like I talk about in the book, who are jacks of all trades and masters of none. They're the ones where you go to their website and you see, we do Lyme and mold and hormones and thyroid and gut and adrenals and brain and detox and this and that. And it's like, cool. What are you actually good at? Like, what's your specialty? Oh no, we do it all. It's like, no, I don't know anyone that can do it all. Like, I don't know a plumber that can also do electricity and build your house and pour a concrete foundation. Like, they're going to come in and do your plumbing because that's what they're
Right.
damn good at. But you don't want to hire them to build your entire house. Like that's just the
Exactly.
reality. Yeah.
No, it is so true. I mean, and the thyroid itself is so complex, and the interplay with the other hormones, the sex hormones, like that whole system in itself is so complex. You need somebody who's an expert in that alone. So let's talk a little bit about that, Amie, though, because before I got to you, and I always tell this story, I've discovered you when you were a guest on Dr. Weston Child's podcast like
Mhm.
many years ago.
Yeah.
I was working with a great practitioner. I really liked her. She was wonderful, but she was so careful with T3. And I think I was on like a little bit of liothyronine and the rest of it was supplements. And my T3 was not budging. I mean, it was like 1.28. And just for reference, it should be at least what, like 3.2 or higher, I mean,
Yeah.
and I
Yours
just
was really low. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I know I'm getting closer, but it's really too slow. I got up one day, I searched online for thyroid specials. He popped up. So I started following him and he was like, "Well, I don't take patients." I knew he had supplements and everything, but he was so knowledgeable. And then one day, thank God you were his guest. And I was
Mhm.
like blown away by your knowledge of the thyroid. But not only that, one of the things I love most about you, Amie, is you're so honest about everything. Like you're very real. And I just felt like, man, I would love to just go have a cup of coffee with her because you're just so approachable. Not only do you have all this knowledge, but you also have the personal experience. So you were able to build that trust. I started following you and listening to your podcast, and you were giving away information for free that I wasn't even hearing from the practitioner I was working with. And I was like, wow, this is really helping me. Like, maybe I should join her program, which I did, and you got me to optimization. But I just think it's so important. Like, you're so good at explaining how all these things work. And so I feel like I've become a much more informed patient. And I'm happy about that. I have some friends who are like, "Ugh, not everybody's like you." Like, I have a friend who does digital marketing for hormone clinics, and she's like, most patients are not like you. I'm like, I think they are. I just find it very empowering to understand blood work. I mean, that is one
Yep.
thing I have to say, even with the previous practitioner, like I learned what C-reactive protein, like that test. I never had that before in a conventional setting. So I want to talk about, Amie, like what gets into this is leading me to this question, that T4 to T3 conversion. Like, let's talk about how you were talking about T4, right? And it's the inactive form of the thyroid that our bodies have to convert. So how does that process work and what kind of interferes with that? Like, why do people have low T3 usually?
Yeah, that T4 to T3 conversion. I joke around about it in the book. I say it's like running 10 Tough Mudders, but for your body. But there's just so much that can interfere. And especially in this day and age, in the world that we're living in, with the toxins, with the frankenfoods, with the stress, with the EMFs, our body's just being bombarded. And it's making it harder and harder for us to properly convert that T4 into T3. So basically, like we said earlier, T4 is inactive. It has four iodine atoms attached to it, 4 iodine molecules attached to it. And because of that structure, it literally can't attach anywhere in your body. It has to lose one of those iodines to become T3, and then it becomes that perfect lock and key for your cell. Like it fits in, it turns it on. That's what lights up your metabolism, your brain, your energy, and all the things. So that T4 to T3 conversion seems simple, but here's what can get in the way. If you're insulin resistant, if you're estrogen dominant, if you're low in progesterone, if your cortisol is high from stress, if your cortisol is low, if your ferritin is low, if your magnesium, selenium, vitamin D, and zinc are low, if you're not taking your B vitamins, what if you have a genetic SNP that can prevent T4 to T3 conversion? So there's all these things like toxic burden, the whole thing can hinder that so when you look at that and all the factors that come into play, you kind of step back and you have to go, yeah, I can't see where the body would have an easy time converting T4 to T3 with the world that we live in now.
Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad. And then it also affects all of the other hormones. That's something else that I've learned. One of the testosterone, for example, and you talk about this in the book. I mean, I never knew until I got into this that was so important for women because previously I had always, I think many people do, have thought of it as like a man's hormone. It's just something that guys need to have. And sadly, there is a shortage of testosterone in men these days too, probably for all the reasons you just stated. But can we talk about that a little bit too, like how they all interact? I mean, the thyroid, how it interacts with the sex hormones and just that whole dance that has to be locked in. Otherwise, it's not just the thyroid. I mean, that's the master gland, but all these other things have to be in place too.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, I mean, like you said, the thyroid's the master, and then downstream from that are hormones. Now, I always say thyroid and hormones kind of play in the same sandbox. They influence each other, which they do. So, just like we said, if you're estrogen dominant and or low progesterone, that's going to interfere with T4 to T3 conversion. That estrogen dominance also produces more thyroid binding globulin, which can bind to your thyroid hormone. Low testosterone sets you up for a greater risk of Hashimoto's or other autoimmune conditions. So they play in the same sandbox, but the thyroid's still at the top. We always have to start there because if that's off, if the thyroid is off, we'll see women go into early menopause, or we'll see, progesterone levels that look like an 80-year-old and someone who's 25. So it's
Yeah.
all dictated by the thyroid. So you have to kind of start with the thyroid. Now, at our clinic, as you know, we do both at the same time. We're going to look at your
Yeah.
hormones, we're going to look at your thyroid, and we're going to say, okay, let's balance both. We're not going to be just addressing thyroid and wait on the hormones. We're going to do both at the same time and continue watching them as they shift, because as you start to optimize the thyroid, the hormones become more optimized. So, we might have to adjust your dose of hormone replacement as your thyroid becomes better and better.
Yeah, and that's what happened. I remember myself like titrating it. That expression, medicine is an art. I think functional medicine really does treat medicine as an art, and each person as an individual, because we all have our own bio individuality. That's what fascinates me too. So I
Yep.
feel like, we tweaked until we got to the right thing, and people also have to be patient with that as well, because we're used to, again, conventional medicine treating the symptoms.
Yep.
Oh, you're depressed. We're not going to check your thyroid fully. Here's this, prescription for this antidepressant. And I'm not, and here's another thing I want to talk about. And you and I are on the same page with this. I'm not against prescriptions. Like levothyroxine is a prescription,
Right.
but I'm against band-aids, I guess. I want something. If I'm going to take something, I want it to do something for my body. And I see thyroid replacement as just replacing what the body should be doing, but for whatever reason isn't doing anymore. And that to me is very different than just taking a pill for an antidepressant.
Well, you said it beautifully. I can't say it any better. That's exactly it. It's we are not anti-medication whatsoever. We're anti-Band-Aid medication. So, when you place thyroid hormone like liothyronine, even T4, I don't love T4 only, but we'll still use T4 in the right combination, or natural desiccated thyroid medication, or compounded T4, T3, whatever that combination that works for you, we're going to use it. But that falls under the hormone replacement category. So I almost like to shift people's mindset when they're like, "Ooh, do I have to take that medication the rest of my life?" I'm like, "Well, no, you're taking a hormone the rest of your life. It's a hormone that your body is no longer making. It's not a medication." It'd be the same thing as if your child had type 1 diabetes and they were told to go on insulin. That's a hormone. Yeah, you have to get it
Right.
from a pharmacy, but it's still a hormone. You wouldn't say, "Oh, no, I don't want that medication," because then your child would die without insulin. So it's the same thing. We're replacing hormones that just aren't being made by our body properly.
Yep. It's funny, just speaking of type 1 diabetes, I grew up, one of my best friends in school, they called it juvenile diabetes back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
But I now know it was type 1. And, it's crazy. Like her snacks would be like orange juice and peanut butter crackers and stuff like that. But I do remember her having, I would go with her and she would have to take her insulin at certain points throughout the day. So, and
Mhm.
now I think they're saying that they can benefit from a lower carb diet, even though it's not type 2. But that's a whole other rabbit trail. But one thing I wanted to say that we mentioned earlier too, Amie, was before, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but before Rockefeller, was it Rockefeller that came along and introduced
Yep.
petroleum, and
Yep.
homeopathy was like the norm in this country. It wasn't woo woo. Like all the naturopathic doctors, the that was all mainstream. So it's only really recently, when you think about history,
Yeah.
that we've come to think about functional medicine as like, you know, we've come to accept conventional medicine as the norm, and functional medicine, I think, is being more accepted now, but as something different. So it's just crazy how that has all come about. But yeah, but I love that you really in the book also talk about just different patients confidentially, because I think that makes it very relatable and people can see themselves, in these patient stories, which makes it,
Yeah.
because I it's just trying to get, like I said, I see people all the time. I have people in my own family that I know would benefit from this. And it's like you can only go so far, and just
Lead a horse to
trying to
water. I know. I know.
exactly, exactly. It's so frustrating. Well, it's like I even see people in different groups online, and it's like 3 years later and they're still complaining because their doctor won't order this test. And I'm like, what are you doing? Your whole life is passing you by. Like, what is going on? So, but one thing I do want to talk about, Amie, too, because it's such a hot thing. And I'm actually ghostwriting a book right now I can't give away too much, but she's a nurse
Right.
practitioner. But it's interesting to me. She does, let's talk about labs for a second. There are certain labs that she doesn't order. She does order free T3. Now, she's not a thyroid specialist, but
Right.
I want to kind of point out the difference. She does order free T3, But she doesn't. I asked her, just for the book, well, do you order the thyroid antibodies? Do you order reverse T3? And she's like, no, I think if the free T is out of whack, I already know what I need to do. So I just wanted to talk about that, though, the importance of labs and getting the full lab work. Because I know in conventional medicine, it's usually what, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. You're lucky you get that test, and maybe you'll get free T4 if you're lucky.
Right. Right, and that's about it. That's
Yeah.
it. But no, I
Yeah.
the importance of getting a full thyroid panel every time is something that I talk about quite often, and I really wanna drive this home for people in that it's no money out of your practitioner's pocket to write down a couple more labs, and they should want to see the whole picture. Like, why would you only wanna look at half of a picture? But you're literally trying to help this person with their health, with their life. So why not get all the data in front of you so that you can help this person the best way you possibly can? Now, I always say, the one way to truly tell if someone knows the thyroid inside and out is in what they order. So if they're not ordering everything, free T3, reverse T3, the antibodies, then they probably don't specialize in the thyroid. They might be able to give you a small overview, but I wouldn't necessarily trust them with my thyroid optimization because they're not looking at the full picture.
Right. Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, my gosh, I remember there was a time when my antibodies were like in the 800s, like really crazy, crazy. So there's two antibodies. I want to talk about this too. So there are
Yep.
two antibodies, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what they do to the thyroid?
Yep. So there's thyroid peroxidase, TPO, and thyroglobulin, TGA. And we want to test both of them because any number in either category indicates that you have Hashimoto's. And a lot of times people will say, "Well, my doctor tested just the TPO and said that because it was a 28 and not a 34, which is the cutoff on your labs, that I don't have Hashimoto's." And I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. So if we think about Hashimoto's as having, and this is any autoimmune condition, you have these, I call them confused soldiers. So they're these little soldiers, i.e. your antibodies, that have been misprogrammed to think that your thyroid is a bad guy. Or if you have rheumatoid arthritis, they're misprogrammed to think that your joints are bad. Or if you have celiac, your small intestine is bad. They're just confused. And these soldiers go out, and because they think that your thyroid is a bad guy, they beat it up. So we want to know, how many soldiers do you have? To tell someone that they don't have Hashimoto's when they have 28 soldiers going out and beating up their thyroid gland on a daily basis is ridiculous. And to those docs, I go, okay, so we're going to wait until that number hits 35. And this poor person is 20 pounds heavier, lost their job, and can't get off the couch. And then you're going to, give them that diagnosis of Hashimoto's. It makes no sense. Treat it now. Address it now. They're struggling now. They just told you they have all these symptoms now. Let's not blow it off. So we want to look at both markers to see if there's any antibodies in either category, because then that tells us, all right, this is an autoimmune situation, and which most of the time it is when we talk about thyroid. And I think it also helps the patient to see the number, because when I tell them, okay, you have autoimmune, now you have to go gluten free, because when you eat gluten, you're going to increase your soldiers and you're going to bring on an autoimmune attack. To tell somebody to go gluten free without data, they're like, yeah, 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 okay, I'll get on that right away. But then when
Yeah,
you show them
it's
a
true.
number and you go, you see how this went from a 50 to a 300? You still eating gluten, aren't you? Yeah. Okay, you wanna stop now? You wanna stop because 'Cause you're building your army, so maybe pull it back a bit, and it just helps the patient understand their health better as well.
No, I totally agree. And it's like, it was so exciting to see those numbers coming down from all the things that I was doing. I mean, I 100% agree with that. I don't really understand why you would test one antibody, not the other. Like, that makes no sense to me at all. It's like,
I
I'm
don't know what's going through their mind. I know.
yeah, I mean, that is crazy. And the other thing that's kind of crazy too, I'm not going to name any names, but I was listening to a podcast and she was interviewing this guest who was a doctor, and like she was talking about, functional medicine, but she was like, don't call it an autoimmune condition. And I'm like, well, that's what it is. And I don't know, like she was, I mean, and maybe it's true, like you were saying, a lot of these environmental things. I totally understand that a lot of this is not our fault. Like there's things that are happening that are
Sure.
affecting our bodies. But the
Yep.
fact is, this is still what's happening, is that we have antibodies that are attacking our thyroid. I mean, that's what's going on. And there's another guy on social media, very natural. I don't know if he's a naturopathic doctor or not, but like he says this similar kinds of things. And I'm all for getting rid of toxins as much as you can, as much as we're capable of. But again, it goes back to I'm going to take thyroid replacement if that's what makes me feel better, if that's what my body needs. There's another doctor I just found on social media recently too that's saying you don't need thyroid replacement. And I'm like, it's crazy.
I can
I
speak
know.
to that really quick.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I brought it up. I want you to, please. Yes.
I can speak to that because I've been a lot more vocal. Like you said, I'm very, very blunt and very straightforward. I've been a lot more
I
vocal
love
about
it.
this lately because it's driving me bananas.
Yeah.
When you see, especially a male doctor, right? I see this more from the dudes out there,
Yeah. Oh
especially
yeah.
a male doctor, and
Mhm.
some not even doctors, just we'll call them male health influencers who have gotten really big in this space, and I can't quite figure out why without naming names. Uh, but they'll easily stand on a stage and go, "You don't need that thyroid hormone. All you need to do is fix your genes. All you need to do is take my master class. All you need to do is take my supplements. You don't need those thyroid. Oh, you don't, ladies, you don't need those sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. No, you don't need that. Just clean out your toxins and do the detox
Yeah.
protocol that I have." And I want to be like, can we cut off your testicles and then tell you that you don't need testosterone? Because I think that's fair. Until you have
Yeah.
actually had a thyroid problem, until you have gone through perimenopause and menopause, I'm sorry, get off the freaking stage and don't even talk to me as a woman and tell me I don't need hormones and that you just want me paying you for your genetic test, for your supplements, for your master class. I call bullshit all day long. Buyer beware. If you listen to these guys, you're gonna get sick.
100%. No, that's why I brought it up. I wanted you to address that because it drives me crazy. But I have the knowledge from you and from just following good people to know like this person's full of crap. I mean, this is, and the guys, they think it's like this one size fits all. Like they have no
Yeah.
clue about women's bodies. And it's just, yeah, it drives me crazy. So another thing that drives me crazy, I need to ask you about this too, is just like the GLP-1s and all the things that are out there and the celebrities hawking them. I'm not going to name names, but they're making big money, pumping this stuff. And I know you were talking about peptides years ago, like even before the GLP-1s really like came on the scene a couple of years ago. So
Yep.
can we talk a little bit about that and what people should look for? First of all, what peptides really are and the many things that they address aside from weight loss too, because I don't think people really understand that.
Yeah, the world of peptides in general and GLP-1s or GLPs really, because we have 1, 2, and 3 now. I mean, it's like the Wild West. It is crazy out there because on the one hand, you have these things that have such great potential and are really, really changing lives. Let's take GLPs, for example. When they are done properly, they're used in the correct dose by the people that fit the profile that should be using them. Changing lives, reversing type 2 diabetes, helping people who have been obese their whole life finally lose the weight, which we know, staying in that obese state is detrimental to your health. But then on the other hand, we have these celebrities and we have TikTok influencers giving out their affiliate code for a peptide website where it's research peptides only. And all of these girls are out there. My hairdresser literally said, like, well, I bought it from a TikTok influencer because I know she's using Reddit True Time. She said it was good. And I'm like, you bought it from TikTok. Okay, this is not good at all. Like, this
Oh,
is not good. So it's where you get your peptides from, it's who's guiding you, it's dose dependent as to whether or not they are hurtful or helpful, honestly. It's one or the other. And then in the world of peptides in general, I think we're going a little bit crazy with that too. I can't tell you the amount of people that are that are using peptides and they don't even know why. Like they don't even know what the peptide is supposed to do. I had one person say that TB 500 helps with weight loss and I'm like, "What?" Like, that's not even a thing. There's no correlation whatsoever. It increases your red blood cells and helps with healing wounds and post-surgery, but it doesn't have anything to do with weight loss. It's just
yeah.
it's crazy out there. So again, for people to just calm down, don't buy into everything you see on IG and TikTok. Do your research and for goodness sake, work with somebody that can properly guide you. And preferably not a peptide clinic because they're going to sell you like 10 peptides and you're going to be out about 5 grand and you're not even going to know what the hell they do in your body. So we just work with someone who's knowledgeable who can be like, "You know what? Why don't you just take this one for this specifically, and this is what you're going to notice with it, and, we'll call it a day."
Yeah, I can't I could never I just don't understand how somebody could just buy, like, from TikTok from an influencer and just start taking it. I would be terrified if I wasn't working with a professional who was monitoring me and, yeah, that's crazy. So I'm glad that we covered that. So the other thing I want to talk about is supplements because you talk about that a lot in the book as well. And I know, I mean, I've seen in the group too. I mean, I'm in your thyroid group, and I know I get supplement fatigue too. I mean, but I
Yeah.
still take them every day, and occasionally I might take a break for a day or two just because
Same. Yeah.
it just, it's just too much. But let's talk about that a little bit. And again, I know it really depends. Once again, you have to work with your practitioner, and it's different for everybody. But what are some of the foundational supplements you think everybody really should be on?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you start getting a specialty supplement, you have to work with someone to really dial that in. But there are some basic ones that we can all implement just for overall support. So your vitamin D is key. Magnesium, we're all deficient in. B vitamins are required for like over 500 metabolic processes, including your thyroid and weight and digesting carbs, utilizing your carbohydrates, the whole thing. Iodine, I believe, is vital. I think everyone should be on it. It's the number one detoxifier because if you don't have enough iodine, then you're going to have chlorine, bromide, and fluoride attached to your receptor sites on your cells, cause cancer, cause thyroid issues.
Oh my
So I
God.
love iodine. And then we can start getting into, kind of the more specialty supplements, such as different things for your gut or for your blood sugar. I love berberine. Of course, I have Thyroid Fixer, Metabolism Fixer that has T2. That's fantastic for inflammation and for raising your metabolic rate. Like it literally increases your metabolism. So you start with the foundation and the core, and then depending on your budget and your health, you start
Yeah.
kind of just branching out from there. And believe me, I get supplement fatigue too. I am not Brian Johnson. I am not take or Dave Asprey. I am not taking 100 supplements a day.
Oh
There are some
God, no.
days I take zero just because of supplement fatigue. And then I go, okay, Aim, come on, you got to do
Yeah.
this for your health. And then and then I'll take my handfuls and whatnot and get back
Yeah.
into the groove. Yeah.
Your T2, by the way. I love, like, when you came out with that, I remember at first it was hard to order. It sold out so
It's
fast.
sold
And
out.
it's
I
like,
know.
but that is one of mine that I will not part with. Yeah, just like the ones that you said. And I love you introduced me to Beam Minerals when you interviewed
Mhm.
Caroline on your show. So I take those. But I want to talk about iodine because you talk about in your book how there's a little dissension in the functional medicine ranks over iodine. Why is that? I know you said it's like 70% in favor and like 30% don't like
Yeah,
it.
I don't know. I don't know why the 30% is in the 30% because I just go on science, right? I just go by the science. So if we look at the science, every single cell in our body has an iodine receptor on it. If we don't have iodine, like I was saying earlier, then chlorine, bromide, and fluoride in their halogen or halide form, they can switch back and forth. Like we know chlorine is chlorine, not chloride, but we know bromide is bromide, not bromine. So whatever form they're in, those halogens will attach to that receptor site. Because if you look on the periodic table, iodine is right there with them. So they literally compete for the same receptor site. So, like, who wants to have toxic halides sitting on their cells? A. And then B, it's needed by your breast tissue. Like, it
Oh,
significantly
wow.
decreases our risk of cancer. Iodine will increase the P53 protein, which then triggers basically tumor destruction. So the P53 protein will seek and destroy cancerous cells and tumors. Why wouldn't you want, I mean,
Amazing.
immune system, the whole deal. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I don't, well, I mean, when you hear all those benefits, I don't know how anybody could be against
You know,
taking it.
the
That's crazy.
the only thing I can come up with is that there were practitioners who overdose people, in the past, and you can go into a thyroid storm, you can get hyper if you take too much iodine. You can even if you continuously take too much iodine, you can even go back to hypo. So it's just simply about finding that sweet spot, moderate dose of iodine that you just take every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's true with this whole thing, though. Like with
Yeah.
just like we were talking about, even the T4, the T3, like everything
Yeah.
in functional medicine, if you're doing it properly, is just about testing to see what works for that individual. I mean, myself, I'm on, and I want to ask you about this too, because I know the FDA was cracking down. I don't know where we stand on that. I got to ask you about that on natural desiccated thyroid, because one of the things I take is NP thyroid. and liothyronine. So I take those two things together. I know you are T3 only,
Yep.
right? So, but
Yep.
it just shows like it depends on the individual and what works for them. So, what is going on with the FDA, by the way, with that? Because I want my listeners to understand this. It's so crazy.
We still don't know. We
Mm.
still don't know. August is going to be coming up soon here,
Right,
and that's the
yeah.
1 year from when the FDA said that companies manufacturing any kind of natural desiccated thyroid medication that's going to be your Armor, NP thyroid, Ren thyroid, that they would have to cease and desist. And basically, they said patients have to find another solution. I don't truly believe that that is going to go through. Now, as a supplement manufacturer, we also, so in the animal derived product category, we have the prescription NDT, which is porcine derived. So Armor NP is from a pig's thyroid gland. Over here we have the thyroid glandular supplements that are bovine derived from a cow's thyroid gland. Either way, like we received a cease and desist letter last August saying you have 1 year to sell out of your thyroid glandular by the fixer. After that, you cannot produce it anymore nor sell it anymore. So after August, any company that you see that is still carrying a thyroid glandular is literally committing a felony and they're going to get shut down or arrested. So we're not taking that chance.
Right.
Needless to say, we're not going to do that. But for the medication, I just truly believe that they can't pull it completely. There's been too much outrage, there's been too many
Good.
petitions. I think, it'll probably be the last minute that they'll slide in and go, "Okay, y'all get to keep Armor," and NP's going by the wayside or something like that. I think we'll still have an option.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. But I did go out last year when you mentioned on your podcast and on Instagram that about the cease and desist letter. I was like, I'm grabbing some thyroid glandular. So I
Yep.
bought a bunch of bottles. I still have them. And that's another thing I wanted. Speaking of supplements, too, I listened to one of your podcasts where you said, as long as you don't open the supplements, right, you have to slap, the FDA requires you to put an expiration on them. But as long as you don't open them, they're okay for
Yeah, no,
longer.
yeah, the FDA requires you to put a 2-year expiration on supplements.
Ridiculous.
And just for
It-
everybody's knowledge, my God, they don't expire that quickly. You're probably safe having your supplements sit on your in your pantry for about 5 years.
yeah.
Maybe after that it starts to lose efficacy a little bit, but yeah.
Can't hurt you though, either way. So I was like, I'm buying these, I'm stocking up just in case. I still have my NP, but hopefully I'm happy to hear that. I think there was such an outrage, and thank you too to you and your colleagues who just banded together when that happened and really
Yep.
presented a united front. I mean, I really appreciated that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, these were colleagues that maybe we disagree on the iodine thing or we
Yes,
disagree on when
yeah.
to test your thyroid, but we all came together for this one purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say too, that's another thing I respect about you because you've had guests on where I knew you disagreed with them on certain things, and you're always so respectful, and you just give the other person a chance to to say their piece, and I really appreciate it. I think that differentiates you from a lot of people out there too, like just that lack of like dogmatic. And I try to be that way too, even like with food and the way people eat. I appreciate that about you too. Like, hey, on the weekends, if you want to give yourself a treat, as long as you're dialed in the rest of the time, like
Yeah.
go for it. I
Yep.
mean, I avoid gluten all the time, but
Right.
but still, like sometimes I want a gluten-free bun on my hamburger, like on a weekend, and I'll do it.
Exactly.
But I appreciate that's what I love about you. Like it's very real. It's very geared towards people living like real life. Another thing I want to talk to you about, though, that this came out, I think it probably happened right after your book came out or right around the same time, was the renaming of polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS. And then I saw, God, I wish I could remember who it was, but somebody was like, a couple weeks later, was like, yeah, there's an ulterior motive. I don't know if it was Danny Hamilton. I can't remember, but it was like it had something to do with pharma. And I'm like, you know what? I can believe that. That's probably why they renamed it. But what do you think about that? Do you like the new name? I mean, do you feel like it's getting closer to what this condition actually is? Like,
They were talking about this years ago, even before they renamed it officially. Basically, we were hearing that, okay, wait, with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, you don't actually have to have the cysts on your
right.
ovaries to be diagnosed, right? So the diagnostic criteria was, well, you have insulin resistance, which causes this androgen dominance, but you don't always have to have the androgen dominance. But usually the insulin resistance is there with the progesterone deficiency and the missed cycles. So when you have that kind of combination, then you treat it as PCOS. At the end of the day, conventional medicine is going to give you a birth control. We're
Yep.
going to test your
Been
thyroid and
there.
give you progesterone. Like That's how
Yeah.
we're gonna treat it, kids. So there we go. And we're gonna control your insulin. Well, you might be insulin resistant because of your thyroid. You might be insulin resistant because of the low progesterone, or you just might be eating like garbage and you need to change some things up. So that's it in a nutshell. It's easy breezy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I was way back in the I mean, I think it was, like, in the late '90s, I was diagnosed with that, and I did
Yeah,
happen to have the cysts, but they were simple cysts, and they dissolved anyway, like, that
I did too. Yeah.
it's so crazy, and
Same.
that vaginal ultrasound was, like, the worst experience of my life, but they made me go through that, and then it was like, "Yeah, here's this prescription for birth control," and I ripped it up. I have nothing against birth control, let me be clear. I just don't like the synthetic, the hormones,
Yeah.
I didn't
Mhm.
know scientifically, I just knew intuitively, like, this is not good for me. I'm not taking it. I don't wanna mess with it. There's other ways, people can, can prevent conception. Why, like, ruin your body? And I know that you've done a lot of episodes where you've talked about, like, coming off of that and, other people, like, what it does to the body and everything. So,
Yep.
um, and just the fact that that is just the go-to answer for everything, like, it's just what we do in
Crazy.
conventional medicine. I mean, it drives me crazy. Okay, another thing I wanna talk about, Amy, while I have you here too, is water. How do you feel about water? Because I know, like, since I was a little kid, my dad was a doctor. He was always after us to drink more water. So I've been drinking, like, a gallon of water a day, probably almost my whole life. But do you feel like we've gone too extreme with that, or what's your feeling on that? What do you tell patients?
No, I don't know. I still think that the need for the average American to drink more water is still there, because we're kind of in our bubble of the health space,
Yeah.
so it's just natural
Yeah.
for us to have one of these
Yeah.
with us
Good
at all
mind. Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think if you step back and look at the average person and they're grabbing iced tea and they're grabbing a soda and they're drinking hardly. My husband is one of them. He doesn't drink enough water at all. And it's just, that's what the average person does. So I think that message of drink water to flush your kidneys for all metabolic processes, we still have to get that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because the person I'm working with now in her book, she's like, believe it or not, there's a Sonic caddy quarter from my clinic. And she's like, it's always crowded. And I see these people coming out with these slushy drinks.
Yes.
And her patients will tell her, well, I don't like the way water tastes. And she's like, it's because you're drinking slushes or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah,
Slurpees, whatever, from Sonic. And it's screwing with your
exactly.
taste buds.
Yep.
And the ironic thing is that stuff just makes you more thirsty, which makes you drink more of that crap. And it's just like this vicious cycle.
Exactly.
and and it's crazy. So, okay, well, another thing I wanted to talk about, we talked about supplements, but low dose naltrexone. So I am one of
Hmm.
those people that can tolerate it really well. And again, it goes back to the bio individuality.
Yep.
But I take that in also with your black cumin seed oil supplement. Like I figure if I take them together, I even heard you say that on
Yeah.
a podcast, like
Yeah.
you can take these together, that's
Mm,
fine to really
doubling
get the
up.
antibodies down. Yeah. So, I mean, how do most people, does LDN, like, where do people fall with that? Are most people able to tolerate it? I know a lot of people can't. Like,
I find it's about 50-50. So like you said, I will always start with black cumin seed oil. So I'll start patients on Hashimoto's Fixer, Hashimoto support by the Fixer, and we'll go there and we'll watch their antibodies. Usually that's enough to push them into remission and to really drop them. But for my patients that have like antibodies in the thousands, we'll double up with low dose naltrexone to see if they can tolerate it. And we always start low with LDN at like
yeah,
1.5 milligrams. Then we'll go to 3 milligrams. We'll max out at 4.5. For really inflamed people, we can go a little bit higher as long as they tolerate it, but it's a crapshoot in the tolerance. Some people will experience increased cortisol. Some people just cannot sleep no matter what time of day they take it, whether they switch it from night to morning, morning to night, it starts
yeah.
messing with their sleep. So it's that nuanced thing,
Yeah.
that nuanced art form of optimization as to whether or not we can use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally really like it. I titrated up at the time. I think we started at 1 and I'm up to 4 and I'm
Yeah.
good at 4. Like,
Yep.
but with the black cumin seed oil though, I have to say it's really been great. I mean, it's really, yeah.
We hear full remission stories from just customers, like not even patients. Customers that are purchasing our Hashimoto's Fixer will write in and be like, "This literally dropped my antibodies to 0." Like, "This is fantastic. That's great." Like, I'm happy to hear. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, another thing that you got me into was the strength training, lifting heavy things. So can we talk
Yep.
about that briefly, like why that's so important? And I know muscle is metabolically active, which is
Yeah.
I think is very appealing. So can we talk about that a little bit and why everybody should be lifting?
Yeah, lift heavy shit. So if I'm allowed to say that on the podcast, not just bleep it
Absolutely.
out, just bleep it out. But
Yeah.
no, lifting heavy. Number one, it's just so empowering, especially for us women. It's just but then on top of that, it builds your organ of longevity, i.e. your muscle. That's more metabolically active. That reduces insulin sensitivity. I mean, just really across the board, it's just a no-brainer. Reduces type 2 diabetes risk, improves cardiovascular function, you know, improves osteoporosis because you're doing weight-bearing exercise. So for my cardio queens out there, I just beg and plead with you
Yeah.
that you get off the treadmill, get off the Peloton, and pick up a weight, do some resistance training because your body composition will improve significantly when you stop being a hamster on a wheel.
God, yeah, and it's funny because I used to love Leslie Sansone, like, she had these 5-mile walk it was like a combination of low and high impact, and I
Yeah,
loved it, but I
yeah,
would this was before I got optimized, I'm like, "Why isn't it doing anything for me?" Like, yeah, I feel good, and I think part of it was psychological because I thought I was doing something good for myself,
right.
but, and then I finally did get to the gym, and, oh my god, like, I now it's like, I can't stop myself from going, and when I keep track of every time I go, I try to add a little bit more weight or more reps or just make it harder in as many ways as I can, and I use the machines, and I do some free weights too, but I'm getting
Yeah,
results on the machines. I just make sure that I increase weight every
yeah.
time. And one thing I love in your book that you say, like, hey, if you can't afford a trainer, just go to a gym. They'll show you around, and they do. The one I went to went all around, and even the equipment has like a QR code, so you could get your phone and scan it and see a
Oh,
video,
yeah.
and it'll show you how to use it. Yeah, it's great.
Exactly, that makes sense, yeah, yeah.
It's great. So I
Yeah.
know I definitely, I mean, I love it. I'm so glad I finally like got into the strength training because it's like it just feels good to be strong too. And just, to be able to help somebody if I'm in the supermarket or somewhere and somebody hits the ground, like I can actually help that person because I'm strong enough to
Absolutely.
do it. So Amy, I want to ask you, so what was the process of writing your book like? Because you are so busy, you've got this busy practice, you got an amazing podcast, you're always putting out new episodes. I'm like, there's another one, like one of your faithful listeners. How did you find time to do this in the middle of all of that?
Time crunch and motivation. So so you know the whole process of writing a book. So when I got my book deal with Simon Schuster, one of the things that we all agreed upon was the timing of when this book would be released. And because there really hasn't been an in-depth, that's why I call the Thyroid Fix the Thyroid Bible, is there has not been an in-depth book written about the thyroid that gives all the information that I give. There are books out there that guide you on healing your thyroid naturally, and there are books out there written by endocrinologists, right? That are more clinical and still kind of one foot in the conventional realm. So I knew that this book was needed, and I knew I wanted it out this year. I didn't want it to be this 2.5 year ongoing thing like it is with most publishers. So we
Yeah.
made that deal, and then part of that deal was me working quickly. So, Dari, it's all the information's always been up here. It was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
transferring it from my
Mhm.
head to paper,
Yeah,
and working through that process. So I'm more of a speaker. So literally I would walk my dog. Like I don't sit and type. I talk. Like I would rather do a video educating you than write a blog article. So I'm
sure.
like, I'm just gonna open up a recorder
Mhm.
and just start talking when I'm walking my dog. I have my things in my ear when I'm doing weights, and I'm like, "Okay, reverse T3 is your anti-thyroid hormone." I'm doing tricep
Yeah.
push downs, like, talking to my and I just dictated everything, and then, of course, I go back and edit through all of that, and then you give it to the publisher, and they edit it, and they send it back, and you edit it some more, and it's back and forth, but it all started with just brain dumping.
Love it. And well, you are so good at video. You're just so good at just verbally explaining things. You have such a great presence online. But I love the whole process, and I love that you got them to commit to a condensed time frame because this information is so needed like now. And I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like I said, there are people in my own life, even though they've seen me and what I've done, that I'm so frustrated and they're young. And it's like, come on, you got your whole life ahead of you. Like
Yeah.
let's do something. So how can somebody work with you guys? So I know that you have two things. So you have a maintenance program, but let's talk first about like how somebody who's just not optimized or they're frustrated with their doctor because they won't order the right tests, like how do they get in touch with you and work with you and your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So start by going to dramie.com, DRAMIE.com. And up at the top, you'll see book a call. It's right there. You click that button, you book a free call with us. We're going to go over everything like what you've done, what you haven't done. Where are you at in your health journey? What are your major symptoms? We want to make sure that we can help you. And we do turn people away if we get hyperthyroidism in people with Graves' disease. No, that's not our specialty. We're going to refer you to somebody else who that is their specialty. So as you said in the beginning, I'm always upfront and honest with people. So is my team. We're not going to take you on as a patient if we are not completely certain that we can help you and get you into optimization land. So it starts with a call for you to learn about our process and for us to learn about where you're at to see if
Hmm.
it's a good fit. And then you start. So we prescribe to all 50 states. We specialize in thyroid and hormones. That is our main focus, that is our main specialty, and we can do it with our hands tied behind our backs blindfolded. I mean, it's just easy. This is what we do every day. So even if you're a person that's like, "Oh my god, I'm such a tough case. Nobody's have been able to figure me out. I've been to multiple functional doctors and they all tell me this or that." Just block it out. Just don't even listen to your own head there. You are not a tough case. I promise you we can help you. So it really just starts with
Yes.
booking a call.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll put all that information in the show description. But no, I love it. And one thing I loved from your program when I initially did, the initial program to get optimized was it was so educational. Like I could log in and you had all this information about the thyroid, but explained in a way that, the average non medical person could understand. And it was great. So I feel like I am a much more educated patient that I can actually talk to other people, at least give them the basics
Yeah.
of what this is all about. And I just felt like that's what's missing in conventional medicine too. But of course, I don't even have time to deal with your problem, let alone educate you about what's going on. So, but
Yeah.
that was such a great benefit to me because I personally, I want to understand what's going on with my body.
You
Yeah,
should. You
yeah,
should. You should never be a passive participant. I mean, you know this. Like
yeah,
I whip our patients into shape and I
yeah,
say, you better know if I stop you on the what thyroid medication are you on and what dose. I don't want you to be like, I need to check my prescription bottle. Absolutely not. You better know what is going in your body and
yeah.
what dose you're taking and be able to have that conversation because this is your health and your body.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was great. And then you have, once people get optimized, then you have sort of the progression program, which is like an ongoing sort of maintenance kind of thing, because it doesn't just end with getting optimized. Then you have to make sure that you stay optimized.
Life happens, our bodies change, our bodies are aging all the time. This is not a static thing where you
Yeah.
go on one dose and that's gonna be it for the rest of your life. I mean, conventional medicine wants you to think that, like, "Here, just take
Mhm.
T4 and call it a day, and this is what you're gonna be on until the day you die," but we're like, "No, your body's always shifting and moving, so we have to be on top of it, retest you, continue giving you your hormones, maybe enter into the world of peptides," because you can't do peptides until you optimize your thyroid and hormones. So even, after we get you through that optimization process, now we can start talking about longevity and peptides and all of that.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. No, I love what you guys do. Your team is awesome. And I'm so glad that you came out with this book. I mean, it's excellent. I recommend everybody go get it. It's on Amazon. I mean, it's in hardback and you got an audio version. Did you
Audible.
narrate me? Yeah,
Oh,
did you narrate the book too?
I did. And what was
Oh,
fun about it is one thing I learned. I mean, and you know this, Daria, that what is in the book is very dictated by the publisher. You
yeah.
can't go too long. You have to stay in these parameters, then you get edited. But the Audible, like, you can add stuff to it. So I'm like David Goggins, right? I'm adding like bonus
Oh, I love him.
chapters to the end
Yeah.
of every chapter so I can just riff like I do and
Yeah.
say what I want to say. So I added bonuses to the end of every chapter in the Audible.
Well, that's awesome. Everybody has to go get it. I'm gonna go get that too then. I have the hardback, but it's
Yeah.
also available in Kindle. But I mean, God, I can't recommend it enough. I mean, you covered everything, Amy, and so really
Thank
so glad.
you.
I'm so glad you did this. It's awesome.
Thank you for
So
helping us spread the message. I appreciate it.
any piece of advice you have before we go for anybody who's listening that's kind of maybe we've piqued their interest? Or is there something
So
somebody could start doing? Yeah.
yeah, the piece of advice I would say is listen to your body because your body knows the best. You never accept the word normal from any healthcare practitioner. Normal is a setting on the dryer. It should not be
Yeah.
used to describe your health and your body. So when you know just like I was in that position. Like, I know something's wrong. This isn't me. I'm not recognizing the person in the mirror anymore. My body feels like a runaway train. What is happening? Something's off. I'm usually not this tired. Why am I losing hair? Why am I gaining weight? If
Yeah.
something is going on, listen to your body. Those are signs and signals that will only get worse if you ignore them, but they're signs and signals that something is going on. So if doctor number 1 or doctor number 10 tells you you're normal, you keep going until somebody can sit down and go, I know exactly what's going on with you. Your symptoms make complete sense. You're not crazy. We're going to figure this out. We're going to fix things.
Well, I'm encouraging everyone to go to your website and book a discovery call because I know from personal experience, you guys, you know what you're doing. They care, and it's just such a different. And just get off of this. I have to go to somebody on my insurance because really, when you think about it, you're not paying a $20 copay. What are you paying every month plus that copay, and you're not getting the help that you need. So, invest in
Exactly.
your health. That's what I tell everyone. So it's definitely
Exactly.
worth it. Well, Dr. Amie, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. It was awesome.
Thank you too. I appreciate you. Thanks for all
All
your
right.
work.
See you soon. Thank you, Amie. Bye.
Hi, this is Daria with True Voice Writing Services and host of True Voice Unfiltered. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you've had a book kind of rummaging around in your head or sitting in your computer and you're not sure what to do with it, reach out to me at truevoicewritingservices.com. I am a seasoned ghostwriter of multiple nonfiction books for professionals who want to use a book to position themselves as a thought leader and trusted guide to attract their ideal clients to them, expand their brand and influence, and open doors to speaking engagements, podcast appearances, and other avenues of success, whether it's real life in-person events and other things. I have been doing this now. I've been writing for longer than I'd like to admit. A few decades now professionally. I've been ghostwriting since 2010. I specialize in drawing out your unique voice and organizing your thoughts into a book that's going to attract your ideal audience. It's very, very important to structure a book properly, to write in your voice. And I've ghostwritten about 20 books right now for various professionals, edited many, many more. And I know how to capture your essence, your voice, while also including the relevant information that we need to attract your ideal audience, bring in more clients, use the book as a lead magnet for those, to get on podcasts because podcast hosts love to interview authors. I can tell you that for a fact. We all listen to podcasts. So consider, as you're listening to your favorite podcast, note how many authors are actually on there as guests. You'll be surprised. And you may be surprised to know how many successful people hire ghostwriters. Have you ever wondered why or how so many busy, successful people can crank out so many books? Well, their secret is they hire a ghostwriter. I specialize in nonfiction books that are lead magnets to attract your clients, the people that you are most trying to reach. And these books work for you 24/7. They're an evergreen brand asset that works for you while you're sleeping. So if that is interesting to you, if you'd like to learn more about it, please go to my website, truevoicewritingservices.com, click on contact, schedule your free, no obligation, 30-minute consultation where we can discuss your project further. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Hi, I'm Dr. Liz. I just want to tell you how amazing and easy it was to work with Daria on my book. You see, I've had a book for a while, been sitting on my desk, sitting on my computer. Maybe you might be able to relate to that. And I didn't know what to do, how to take it to the next step, how to make it look polished and edited and easy and useful for my readers. Met with Daria. We had some great conversations. She learned my voice, my goal, my style, and she was able to edit and give me feedback on how to make my message clearer, more focused, polished, and it worked. I have a book. In fact, I have a book and a workbook that she's edited for me and guided me along the pathway. So if you're maybe a little bit like me, that you have a book or you have an idea and you haven't known where to take it, how to take it to the next stage, reach out to Daria. She's a game changer and she's really easy to work with and takes great pride in her work as well. So join me in the published author arena. Reach out to Daria. I'm Dr. Liz.